helping seniors of Brevard. And as I always like to say, we have a daily double whenever we get the show going, because our host is also the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. That is none other than Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper, and thank you. And you're right about that music. We have this conversation almost every week because, all of us love that music, and even though when we have a new guest, they always kind of like fall in place. And
it never fails, right?
We talk about it all the time. And Terry, since we're talking about you, I might as well introduce you. Terri Petzar, who is the host of her own podcast, a broadcaster, if you will, in her own right, Time with Terri Podcast, and she's joining us in the studio. And Terry, we call that the music of your life, and John and I keep saying, as you know, John is president of the Helping Seniors organization. He's helped since the day that Joe Steckler founded this. In fact, goes back before then when Joe was running the Brevard Alzheimer's Association and building up the Joe's Club. So has a lot of background in all this, but we've always joked that we've got to do some kind of a dance party or something with this kind of
absolutely
with this kind of music for sure.
Yeah, because people love it so much.
They do.
It's unique. Nobody's doing it.
Yeah,
and we need to. We need to get together and talk about this.
We're going to figure this out, and Time with Terri Podcast is going to help us promote it too. So welcome, Terry. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm so excited to let people know about my podcast and to inform Brevard County on the wonderful services that we have in our area, to introduce them to the many people and the many areas in senior care that are offered to them. And with all the networking that we do and all the people that we know them well. We see them a lot, and we know how they work. So those that we support, we know have a good reputation. And as seniors, as me being a senior myself, we work really hard for what we have when we retire, and we just don't want to be ripped off. So it's nice to know that, there is resources to go to that they know that can be trusted.
The way you're saying that is so in tune with what Joe Steckler's vision was for this organization when he founded us 15 years ago. So first of all, I want to welcome you. This is our Lunchtime Wednesday broadcast. We always gather around the radio Wednesdays at lunchtime right here on 90.3 FM, WEJF. And if you're listening online at WEJF.net, thank you. And if you're picking this up as a podcast, because we always make these available as quickly as we can following the broadcast, so folks can say, hey, I heard something, but I had to get out of the car and run into the store for a few minutes, and I maybe missed a piece of information. So that's why we do the podcast. Every place you find them, you can find it: Apple iTunes, Spotify Radio, iHeartRadio. Every place podcasts are, you will find us, including YouTube and Facebook, of course, and our own website at Helping Seniors of Brevard. But Terry, what I was going to say is when Joe Steckler, when I first met him, which was right at the time that he was getting ready to launch Helping Seniors, he had just sort of tried to retire from the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation. Joe was a retired Navy captain. He and his wife relocated here to Satellite Beach, and Joe couldn't stay retired, so he got busy and he builds up the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation, then retires from that, and then can't stay retired. And that's when I met him, and he said, Kerry, what I learned was many families are impacted by cognitive challenges. Somebody in the family is on a dementia journey or similar, and we needed resources for that. And he felt like his work on that was kind of completed, but he said what he learned along the way was that every family is going to run into some senior issue that they haven't faced before. And he goes, I feel like we need to create an organization that's going to be there to help them navigate whatever it is they're going through. So, Terry, as you know, when Joe established this, we created the county's Senior Information Helpline, which is a free call. I'm going to give you that number, but give you a second to grab a pencil and so you can jot it down and make sure you have it close by. But that number took more than 4,000 calls last year about everything: housing, legal, medical, financial, transportation. And the point is, for most of us, we think we're pretty smart in the lane that we're in, but we run into these senior questions, and it's what was the old expression? It's all Greek to me, because we just don't know that language or all the parts of it. So Joe wanted to create that Senior Information Helpline, and I'm going to give you that number now so you can jot it down. It's 321 321-473-7770. I'm going to say it again, 321-473-7770. And Terry, as you know, Karen has a great, herself, and talking about Karen Warnland, who runs our Senior Resource Center, has a group of volunteers, and together, what they really try diligently to do is make sure that we have the best list of resources in the county. So when somebody calls up with a question and they're not sure what their next step is, at least we're there to talk them through it and see if we can do something that's going to make a difference. I always laugh, we've always watched on TV, they had a series of like airplane disaster movies, and sometimes it was the pilot who got knocked out in the control tower is trying to help somebody who doesn't really know how to land the plane. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's a reasonable analogy for all this, because again, people run into this stuff, and Terry, they don't know what to do next. You yourself have a long background in this. You came out of the physical therapy side of this, and talk a little bit about your own background, because it's pretty impressive when you start thinking about how this led you to do the Time with Terri podcast.
Right. Also, I'd like to mention my mother, Teresa Bergeron, worked with Joe.
Yeah,
worked with
that's
Joe
right.
At the Alzheimer's Association, and so she helped write grants and scholarships for Alzheimer's, and she also helped to start Joe's Club. So I always have to brag about my mom.
Yeah, and two, this is part of the story too, because you're helping your mom even now as she's getting older and having issues on her own. You're able to be there and help there, and that's one of the things we talk about a lot. Caregivers get so much put onto them, and that's one of the things that you not only have worked with it in your career, you've experienced it as a person, and then you're still willing to share your wisdom and experience and help other people go through this.
Right. I still am. I'm still licensed. I just haven't done any physical therapy for a little while. But for 46 years, I worked with seniors. And I always say, I worked with seniors my entire career. Now I'm at that age. Now I'm a senior. But I just know, both professionally and personally, the decisions that people have to make, the really hard decisions to make, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or a lot of other types of diagnosis that they have to deal with. And sometimes they just don't know where to turn. They don't realize that there's help out there, and that, we can help to navigate, like you said, to help them to navigate through this time in their life, because it's difficult. It's very difficult to make certain decisions, and there's different stages, like in Alzheimer's, there's different stages that they go through, and we can help them find either caregivers or an assisted living facility or memory care facilities. So that's why I'm enjoying having this podcast to inform people of what their options are.
That's really the thing that is at the heart of the Helping Seniors mission. Is Joe, when he established it, he created it. He said, our mission is to inform, educate, and connect seniors to resources that are going to make a difference. And I jokingly say, we have so many rocket scientists right here on the Space Coast because we are the Space Coast. But just because you're an expert at launching a rocket doesn't mean that you've ever had any exposure or knowledge about what to do next with mom or dad or aunt or uncle. Right. And I can tell you, I've talked to so many of the home health care, home help agencies in our community, and they all talk about kind of universally, they'll get a call from an adult child of mom, dad, aunt, or uncle who maybe lives down here, but they are up north and they came down for a visit, and they realized it's getting a little bit much for that person, that senior, to be able to manage on their own. And then they're really at a loss to try to figure out, well, who do I trust? Who do I call? What do I do next? And I think that was Joe's vision for this. And I remember when you and I met and we first started talking about that, you had this vision to do the Time with Terri podcast. You said, that's exactly where I want to go with this. I want to help people be able to find those people that are going to make a difference on their aging journey. So when you began the process, it's interesting because your background is in physical therapy. You have the experience as a caregiver, but the broadcasting part was a little bit new to really get into that side of it. Yes. Talk about that.
Yes. Yes, very much. I'm still a little nervous. I've done about 10 interviews so far with some wonderful people and wonderful topics, but I just really feel that Brevard County needs to meet the people that they can trust. when I do an interview, excuse me, you get to know. I always ask them about their background and how they got involved with whatever agency or some charitable organizations. I had a wonderful interview yesterday with Kerry Sapp from New Life Mission.
She's awesome.
Yeah, yes. That was an excellent interview, and I've been to the facility, and it's what a wonderful ministry that is, and it really helps a lot of people, a lot of homeless women with their children to get a fresh start. So just to let people know like what services are available out there, but right, I just and as I do my networking, I meet wonderful people. Yeah. We meet such nice people, and we know that they love what they do. They're very excited. I have a new producer, and she's great, and she's like, wow. She said these people are really passionate about their jobs and their like what they believe in. So she said that's really exciting for her, because I'm like, you're going to learn a lot, and I've learned a lot from so many of my guests to get to know them. So that's why it's great that I want Brevard County to know that.
I remember having this conversation shortly after I met Joe, and he was complaining. He said, Kerry, they're just, with as many seniors as we have in Brevard County, and the statistics certainly bear this out, 1 in 4 is over the age of 65, and even 1 in 2, half of the population is age 50 or better. And so by AARP definitions, you're a member. They want you to be a member at age 50, and they'll send you a birthday card on your birthday to prove it. And so the point is, we have so many seniors in our county. In fact, we have more seniors over 65 than we do school-age kids under 18. And so Joe said, I don't think we have enough programs here in Brevard County. And this was 15 years ago when he began the work of helping seniors. And I remember saying to him, Joe, you're probably right. And I think 15 years later, I would agree there's definitely room for more. But I said, isn't one part of it that there are a lot of great organizations doing good work, but nobody has pulled it all together to let people know where those programs are? And so therefore, when you run up to something that you need, if you don't know the program exists, it might as well not exist in your universe because it's not helpful to you. And I think one of the aspects of what you're doing in Time with Terry, when you take the time and you go out and you're talking to people who are doing such important work in the community, like New Life Mission and Kerry Sapp and her team, they're doing some great work. Yes. You're really helping people know that there are resources out there that they otherwise might just walk over and not know exist.
Right. Like I had no idea. And my trivia question, I always like to have a trivia question and then a quote. And the trivia question yesterday was, I guess every year they do, they got a point in time, and they have local churches and businesses and organizations that divide the county, and they count how many homeless people there
very
are.
Familiar.
And that was my trivia question. There's one. There were, as of January 23rd this year, there were 1,062 homeless people.
Yeah.
In our county. And the good thing about them going out and telling them, I mean, it's good for us to know, because I mean, it's really sad to think that there's that many people, but there's a lot of things that we can do to help with them also. But yeah, it was sad, but interesting. And then as they go out to find these people, they can tell them like what the resources are, how they can find help. And 211, Karen was saying, which I did not know, that they can call it 211 for help to find out like what their status is and where they could place them.
Well, that's really the point. Is like I always used to say this to Joe. There are a lot of organizations that do their best to provide services here in Brevard County, and I said I think our role here is not to compete with anybody who's trying to do a good work, but rather to complete the equation, because you may know of a program that we don't know about, or vice versa, and that the better we can all educate each other on where help might exist, that's a good thing. I was thinking when you were talking about 211, we get a lot of people who get referred to us by 211 because 211 says, okay, these are guys that really do focus in on senior questions. And so again, it's like the right call at the right time. And I was thinking that if we're able to collectively, and I mean all of us, do what we should be doing for seniors here in Brevard County, I would hope that 5 years from now, people would start to look at all the different organizations, and we have some great ones, like Aging Matters does such good work with the Meals on Wheels program and so much that they do. Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation that we talked about that Joe started up going to this day with both daycare, and then they also have some transportation options. But all of us coming together and working together. There's some great businesses out there, like One Senior Place is all dedicated to seniors all the time. So many good people doing good work to seniors, and we're all in that same a hope of trying to get all of this connected. But 5 years from now, wouldn't it be great if people across the country would look at Brevard County and say, those people are really doing right for their seniors. We need to take a look at them. And I think that should be our goal in everything that we are trying to do, not only within helping seniors, but as you do the podcast and all. And I've seen it already. I've looked at some of the amazing guests that you've had on the broadcast already. You've had conversations with people who are like I thought about I watched the one you did with Top Team Moving. It was terrific. You've done some amazing. Talk about some of the guests that you've had on the air with you.
Right, Top Team Moving and is Colton Jones, and I'm very impressed by that young man. He graduated college at 20.
Yep.
Florida has a wonderful education program, so he took college courses in high school.
Yeah.
And at 20 years old, he started his own business.
Yeah.
So he's had his own business now for 4 years, and he's a very nice, very, very, very nice young man, and very professional.
Right.
And he's just and he wants to do what's best for his customers and improve on himself too. And then Christina Knowles has Make Space Now.
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
Yes, she's a professional organizer and senior move manager. So, she can help if you have that garage. Her and I used to work. We worked together off and on. And, I always loved when she came into my facility because she was always very organized and wonderful to work with. Because when I'd see her on the schedule, I was like, yay, Christina's here today.
She has that same background, right?
She's OT. She was an occupational therapist assistant, right?
Wow.
And so, and she has such a heart for seniors.
Yes.
So because I said, you went from rehabbing people to rehabbing houses. So she's great. That Christina Knowles with Make Space Now. And I had Deidre Schubert, who...
Oh, my goodness. Flourish Research? Oh, yes.
Yes, with Flourish Research, and an amazing conversation about Alzheimer's and the different some of the different steps or the warning signs for Alzheimer's. That was very interesting. And Angie Dunn was a wonderful interview with hospice. So we talked about all kinds of things and the myths. There's so many myths about hospice. So we cleared that up, and she was just wonderful. Yeah. A wonderful guest.
St. Francis Hospice, great people too.
Yes.
I was thinking as you were talking about some of the guests that you've had, how each one of them plays a role. Joe used to call it an aging plan. He wanted every senior to work on creating an aging plan. And I remember at first I was having a little trouble wrapping my mind around that. And finally I asked him, I said, is this like a hurricane plan, right? You don't want the storm. You just want to know if they tell you this is coming at you, how you're going to react, and that you're prepared for it, right? And he said, that's pretty much it. So we adopted, as you know, we jokingly call it getting your ducks in a row. So a lot of times you pull out your Senior Scene magazine and you'll find helping seniors published in the center section, and we're always making jokes about ducks, helping you get your ducks in a row, and so we use that a lot. But all we're trying to do is say what Joe was trying to say too, which is you need to kind of get this organized, because you're going to have such better outcomes when you are able to tackle some of these questions ahead of time, or at least be prepared to tackle them. And so there was two corollaries, as you know, Terry, that we've added to that as we've gone down the road. We say, number one, you don't try this on your own. You don't have to do all this aging stuff on your own. We are blessed to live in an area where there's so many good resources, and I think that's what you tap into every time you do a podcast.
Right. And as we talked about before too, that it's so good. The preparation is the key, because like when the time comes, you don't want to make a rash decision. You want to make sure that you have your ducks in a row, that you have your resources, and then you'll be prepared, and you won't be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? And you're pulling your hair out. So it's, it's always, you always hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Well, I think that's what your time with Terri podcast really does, is you're getting people in a very relaxed and entertaining kind of way. You have these trivia questions. You're very good at how you interview your guests, and you really get into their personalities and their skills. And it's really kind of I would almost say a low-key, comfortable way to learn while you're just relaxing and enjoying a good broadcast that has friendly people on board.
Thank you. Well, I watched Johnny Carson when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I had trouble sleeping at night, and I had this little TV in my room, so I watched Johnny Carson every night.
Sure.
And I've been watching some of the reruns, and I love his style.
Yeah.
That he was just very comfortable, and it was just conversational.
Right.
And because people come in and they're like a little nervous, and I'm like, hey, it's just you and I. It's like we're just sitting here having a cup of coffee. You're just telling me about yourself and your services and how you can serve Brevard County.
Yeah, no, it's so good. We're talking with Terri Petzar, who is the host of Time with Terri podcast. We're going to talk when we come back from the other side of the mid-show break. You're out on YouTube, and there's a number of great ways, Facebook, a number of great ways to find it. We're going to talk about that in the second half of the Helping Seniors radio show. So stay with us. See you in a minute.
You've tuned into Helping Seniors of Brevard, the program for and about seniors and their loved ones, and it's heard every Wednesday, 12 noon and 1 o'clock. Let's get back to the second half of our show. Here's your host and the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard, Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper. Thanks again, and thank you for joining us on this Lunchtime Wednesday, as we do every week, gathering around the radio, 90.3 FM, WEJF, and online, WEJF.net. And I was speaking with our guest, Terri Petzar, who herself is a podcaster with the Time with Terri podcast, really focusing in on 50-plus and senior advocacy. And we were talking during the break, people, when they hear the show and we want to refer them back to the show, it's one of the reasons we always make sure these are out as podcasts, just like you do, Terri. We want to make sure people can find these later. So you go any place you find a podcast. It could be Apple iTunes. It could be, hey, Alexa, play me Helping Seniors Radio. It could be iHeartRadio, just wherever you get a podcast. Just look up for Helping Seniors Radio, and you'll be able to hear this show and all the rest. That was one of the things that we've done since the day that Helping Seniors began, was putting together material online. So all of our TV shows, radio shows, our publications, articles that we've written together over the years, and all that you'll find at helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. That's our website, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. The reason we do that is what we've learned along the way. And I think, Terri, you will see this happen also with the podcast. People will search out by topics. There's something that they discovered that they need, and they're going to do an internet search, and your name will come up because you did an interview with, like we were talking about, maybe somebody like Christina Knowles with Make Space Now, because all of a sudden they're going to be downsizing. Maybe mom and dad are going to go from, a big house, but now it's time for them to go into assisted living, and now they've got to ferret through 40 years of accumulated stuff, and it's all important to them, but probably they don't have room for it in the next chapter. So they've got to have some help like Christina would be able to give on stuff like that. And I guess those are the kind of stories that you're used to telling in the podcast.
Right. And then they work with Top Team Moving, and Christina work together, because it's in the realtor, sometimes we'll work with them because you have the realtor.
Right.
And then, I think our networking people are good at working together for the good of the client. So you have the real estate person, you have the mover, and Christina can help with the organizing. And, Colton with Top Team Moving is, great to move them from point A to point B. So, yeah, we have a good partnership in our area.
No, I think so. I think that's what we were talking about in the first half of the show, was that your role, particularly with your own background as in PT for all those years, but also understanding it from the role of a caregiver in your own family. You have that empathy for what people can go through. In fact, we were talking during the break. My wife and I were invited to. There's a Christian movie that's coming out October 10th in theaters called Soul on Fire, and it's a very complicated story about a fellow who is now very, very successful, but he, as a 9-year-old, he literally was playing with matches and gasoline. Not only did he burn himself 100%, and they said that he had no chance for survival, he actually burned down his whole family's house and put everybody at risk. But the story is not about that. It's about the recovery that he made and now the impact that he's having as a motivational speaker on literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people all over the globe. And the interesting part that we were talking about during the break was that when he was in college, he met his wife, who was a physical therapist. And really that played very much in his ability to get beyond not only the physical limitations, but also the psychological limitations. And I was thinking about that. It takes a very special person to come up in the PT, OT kind of worlds, because you really have to care about people. And I think that's one of the things, Terry, that makes you so effective in this, is you have that background, so you really understand what's going to help people.
Right. I mean, and I've seen people. I mean, I personally, with my mother with Alzheimer's, I've seen her, go through many stages. And she lived with me at first,
yeah,
and then she went into an assisted living facility that required the memory care, and then I decided to bring her home. So, so now she's at her end stage. But right, when you get it, when you've experienced it, it's different. I mean, professionally too. You see what the families go through, and,
mm-hmm.
and then you can be, more empathetic. But yeah, you have to have that balance in physical therapy, because people are like, oh, I couldn't do that if I did something. And they were like, oh, that's too hard, or, oh, that hurts. And it's like, okay, yeah. And I said, yeah, then it's good that you didn't go into PT,
yeah.
because, you have to have that balance though of the empathetic, but also, you need to get better, and your goals are to be more independent. So, so you just have to, like I said, just have an even balance with the empathetic and the, trying to, when to know, like, how to push them,
yeah,
and how far to push them.
Well, I was thinking, like, we have the pleasure of working with some amazing PT companies like Physical Therapy, which has a couple of locations in the Atlantic, and then I think one beachside, and Peter Rentz and those guys. I mean, I remember how they were helping Joe, because Joe was adamant about wanting to keep, I always heard PT people say, if you want to, you got to move it or you're going to lose it. And they wanted to keep you as active as you could. But I was thinking that's why it really puts you in kind of a good place to be hosting this Time with Terry show, because you have all these backgrounds. You have the kind of the medical background going through PT. You have the caregiver background, so you can really relate to people who are on that kind of a platform and understand all the sacrifices that you have to make along the way and all the protections that you must put in for yourself so you don't burn out and are not able to help the person you're trying to help.
Right.
But then you also have this passion to explore all the resources that are out there and kind of help people know what options exist for them.
Right. And there just are so many wonderful resources that, people sometimes don't realize, you don't have to get burned out. There are, home care agencies like Synergy Home Care, and, and seniors helping seniors too.
Yeah.
With Jennifer Barton.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a different level. So it depends on what level, the person is, as to what type of resource that, you would refer them to.
That's what we've always talked about. So I mentioned, as you know, kind of like our sub-theme and everything we do in helping seniors is helping you get your ducks in a row. Then the second part of that, though, we said the corollary is don't try this on your own. So get the help, because we're blessed to have such good help in our area that can help us work through this. And then there's a third part to this, or second corollary that we've added, and we say make sure that the help that you get for whatever you're going through is somebody local, because all too often I talk, particularly when I talk to people who are involved in like things like Medicare, or maybe they're involved in helping families find the right place for mom or dad to live, or like senior living or things like that. And I hear it all the time from our elder law attorneys. One of their things that's an anathema to them is that people will spot an ad on TV. It says call 1-800, and you pick whatever the topic is. And the challenge is that you wind up talking to a call center in Omaha, and they're going to do their best to help you. I'm not saying that they're not trying to do their job, but they don't understand the Space Coast because they haven't been here. So when they're telling you like, oh, there's a doctor, it looks like it's right around the corner, they don't understand that Brevard County is 72 miles north to south and things like that, or they don't know which doctors take which insurance. They don't know which facilities have just recently been rated great and which may be needing to get back to work on improving. And you have all this. So we all say you got to get somebody local. And that's one of the things that I love what you do with Time with Terry is you are seeking out the people that you feel really represent the best of that local talent, I guess, for working with seniors. Talk a little bit about that.
Right. And, and we, a lot of us talk about too, don't let that big fancy building fool you. Sometimes,
good point.
I mean, sometimes you can walk in and everything is beautiful. They have lovely furniture and, beautiful chandeliers or whatever. And you find out that's not really the most important thing, and because there was a lady, I can't, anyway, but she has a small home, and some people have like in their own home, they have like six, privately they have like, 6 people. And she said that, that somebody came and they were like, oh, the house isn't fancy. And, it's, it was a nice home. But she said, I don't think that's like good enough for my mom. So she took her to some big fancy place. And she said, you know what? She said next Monday she's going to be admitted to my facility. Because they found out that wasn't the most important thing.
I was going to say that because we have the luxury of working with so many wonderful assisted livings. We just did a tremendous event with our friends at Zon Beachside who hosted a thing called ARP, AI and Disinformation. We had you were there. It was like a standing room only crowd, and it was really good on Monday there at Zon Beachside.
I didn't go to that.
Oh, well, it was a packed house, but there's some lovely places that are out and about. But to your point, is like I remember hearing somebody that was like a marketing person for one of these that was explaining when the son and daughter came and said, okay, can you show me the weight room? Can you show me the swimming pool? Can you show me? And the question that the lady asked back was like, is this what your mom does or is this what you do? And so the challenge was the people, these were very good questions, probably for them. Mm-hmm. We use the weight room. We use the pool. But that may not be where mom lives. And the question is, what is mom into and what are the things that you're able to do that are going to help mom? So a lot of it is, again, having the ability to find somebody who can help navigate you to what's really going to be best for mom or best for dad, right. Not necessarily what you think, because it's not right. You're not the one moving in, right?
Right, because maybe mom does mom swim?
Right.
Does she like to swim? Can she actually get in the swimming pool?
Yeah. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, fine, but where are we today?
Right. And some of the bigger facilities are good, but there are some nice little private homes. It depends on what you're looking for.
See, I wanted to bring that up to you because years ago, the gentleman's name, he has a company called Sotir. His name is Troy Denault with Sotir LLC, and that's his business. Is they help people find the correct location, but they're 100% local. And something that he said, that's why I always give him credit for this, really made an impact on me. He said, first of all, Kerry, he said, I've never seen a family wake up on a random Saturday morning and say, let's go look at assisted care facilities. It just doesn't happen just for fun. I was like, you'll pick anything but that. Right. And then the problem is something has happened, and now you have to find an assisted living facility. And you don't even know where to begin, and now it has to be done by next Tuesday because mom can't come home safe from the rehab center or whatever else is going on. Right. And now you're under pressure and you're making these big decisions and you don't have the time, resources, or even the experience to know how to do it. But this was the second thing that he said, and I thought this is really to the point that you were just relating to, is the fact that when I didn't even know until I met Troy that there was such a thing called a small group ALF. Mm-hmm. So our only perception was just what you're talking about. You see the big ads and these look lovely and they have the swimming pool. Maybe they even have a golf course. Who knows, But the point is, like, are they really set up to do the things that mom or dad is going to find helpful. And I remember he did a thing called Parade of Homes where he took us around and he showed us what a small group home, and he said, Kerry, did you know there's 140, this was many years ago, it must be more, 140 ALFs here in Brevard County. I said, I had no idea. Because if you asked me, I could probably name, maybe half a dozen off the top of my head that I know because they're big and they're well respected and all that, but don't know as many of these small ones. So to your point, these are the areas that you're talking about in your podcast.
Right. Right. I mean, and some of the bigger facilities are very nice, but you really have to do your homework and read the reviews and go in, just go in unannounced.
Yeah.
That's always the best thing, because if they know you're coming, sometimes it is nice, they can give you a tour and whatever, but if you go in unannounced and then you're like, okay, this is this is how it really is.
Yeah.
So it is quite interesting. But we have like Reese and
Reese and Graham Garson with assisted living locators, great people who are in that line. And again, they're local.
Right.
So what I always say to you, what gives you guys such a great advantage, right, is that you were just across the threshold of that place just the other day, so who's on their game, and who maybe needs to step it up a bit,
Right. Because, when they're, for their sake and for their clients, they do go to these different places and they talk to people. And when we do our networking, there's a lot of people that have these small homes that are in with our networking. We have like Golden Providers, with you, and there's the FSGA, the guardianship, and BOZ. So there's a lot of different, activities that we have, events that we get together. So, there's always, I just, when I first started like doing this, going out to networking, I love it that, people are talking to people, everybody, the networking events are wonderful because people get to talk to each other out there so that, they can talk about their facilities. Hey, come on over. Right. Let's, I invite you over, so that like Reese and with
Graham,
Graham and their company.
Yeah, it's assisted living locators, right?
Right. So they, they investigate all this stuff. So,
absolutely.
Right. And being local, like you said, it's great because they know the area.
No, it's 100%. And I think that's what's so valuable about what you do in the Time with Terri podcast, is because you're bringing these people and you're sharing their expertise at what they do. And so people can get a sense of like, I like how that person's explaining that to me. That makes sense. That's somebody I would trust with this. And that's such an important part, because you can't get that, to be honest, you can't get that out of like a print ad or something. They can show you pretty pictures, but you can't really get like what's the personality, what's really going on. That's what you're able to get when you hear somebody on Time with Terri podcast. Talk to us about how people can access the Time with Terri podcast.
Right now I'm on YouTube and Facebook. So just go to Time with Terri. It's TERRI. And the episodes will pop up.
Yeah, and if you have any trouble finding it, just give us a call on our Helping Seniors number, 321-473-7770, because Karen or one of our great volunteers will make sure you get there. And then you're going to be expanding through podcasts and everything. So this is really a program to watch. We at the Helping Seniors organization have had the pleasure of knowing you since you were sort of first masterminding how you're going to get this on the ground, off the ground. And it's so wonderful to see this happening, because the number one thing that we can do in Brevard County is all work together to get information in the hands of seniors and their families that is going to make a good difference. And that was really the whole point of helping seniors and what Joe had in mind for us to accomplish. And I was thinking, like 15 years into this now, it's more important than it ever was before, because we just have flat more seniors. We have more people who are becoming 65 every day. Just the boomer generation is getting there. Then we have more people just flat living longer. It used to be 100 was an incredible milestone. Now it's becoming, I would say, reasonably common. And so people are just flat living longer. And then the third part of this is people just love to move to Florida.
Yeah.
So we have just more and more people here. And these are the people who really could benefit from what you do, Terri, with Time with Terri, because you're able to talk to them and speak to them when they're just getting settled and trying to figure out who's who here.
Right. And then also there's a lot of people that are in the sandwich generation.
Oh, you know that.
That they have, they have kids, they're raising kids, and then they have aging parents. And, it's that there's just so much responsibility, and they're, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? When do I do it? And just don't realize there's help out there. And so, yeah. But just a cute story, though, about aging. I had a patient, Margie. She was 106 at the time.
Wow.
And one of the therapists, she had just turned 30. And I was like 60, 63. Yeah. But anyway, I just said, oh, to be 30 again. And Margie said, oh, to be 100 again.
It's all in your perspective, right? Yeah,
and
wow.
She was so funny. She was using a walker. And she said, Terry, I'm just really starting to slow down a little bit. I said, Margie, you're 106. I'm 63, and I'm slowing down.
Amazing.
Age is relevant.
Amazing.
It is relevant, but it's just I've always loved working with seniors, and the music. That's why I love this music.
No,
this
you
is
know it.
great.
You know it. That's what we were talking about with John. 100%.
Yeah, I'm just tapping my toes here because it's like. My mom she's watching musicals, and I was watching a Judy Garland and Gene Kelly, and I loved tap. I always loved watching Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, but the music, and I always said I was an old soul. Now I'm just old.
It's all good. We've been talking with Terri Petzar, who is the host of the podcast, fast-growing podcast, Time with Terri. You're going to be hearing more about this. We're 100% behind Terri and everything she's doing. Really appreciate the friendship and all the good work you're doing for seniors. We got a minute or two left, and I want to share a couple of events that are coming up so that you want to get this. One of this I'm really excited about. This is coming up Friday right there at Joe's Senior Resource Center, 1344 South Apollo Boulevard. This is something we've been trying to get off the ground for a while, and we're going to have our first class Friday afternoon, 1 p.m. to 2:30. It's called Senior Tech Talk, and we're going to actually start to help people learn those things that, you go to the doctor's office, they want you to check in on your smartphone. They want you to check to see if your prescription is ready on your smartphone. The bank wants you to check your balance on your smartphone, and so we have a great lady, Bree Prentice, is going to be leading the course, and our idea is, if everybody likes it and feels good about it, the whole idea is to make that a regular thing so we can get you proficient with your smartphone, because the running joke always, Terry, is, you find a 9-year-old someplace and say, how do I do this? And they'll show you. But it goes back to that, give somebody a fish and they ate today, but if you teach them how to fish, then they're good for the rest of their lives. So that's the point. But this is Friday, 1 p.m. at Joe's Senior Resource Center. So call Karen, just let them know you're coming, 321-473-7770. The other event that I want to get in real quick is that next Tuesday we're doing advocacy training. So if you're interested in working together with AARP, who's a leading advocate and helping seniors, they're doing advocacy training. It's a special class that's going on from, I think it's 11 to 3, but it's going to be held at the DHG Medical Center. You do have to register for that because space is limited, but call 321-473-7770 and ask, and they'll give you the information on that. And of course, the big thing to remember is the Helping Seniors Car Raffle. That's our huge fundraiser. We need you to get your tickets, be in it to win it, support the work of Helping Seniors. That's how we make our budget so we can do this again next year. I'm talking about the work of Helping Seniors. We always have fun with the car raffle, but when you get your ticket by donating $25, $5 for $100, you are supporting the work of Helping Seniors. You could win your pick of 7 amazing automobiles. You get to decide. Last year, our winner chose the Chevy Colorado truck, but they're all great cars and vehicles from AJ Hires dealership, and it all winds up October 26th, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the American Muscle Car Museum, and your ticket includes the fun of being there at the American Muscle Car Museum. Don't miss it. Get your ticket today. Call 321-473-7770. You can visit Helping Seniors Car Raffle.com. Terry, you've been to several of the car shows. You know how much fun
they're fun.
All that stuff is. But the car show, when
amazing.
You get to go to Mark's Museum, it's off the chart. So Helping Seniors Car Raffle.com is a great way to support the work of Helping Seniors in Brevard. So, Terry, thank you for joining us today. That's really about the time that we have for Helping Seniors this week. We will see you right back here Wednesday lunchtime next week with Dr. Lee Sheldon. He'll be our guest next week on Helping Seniors Radio. See you then. Have a great week here to there.